Towson, Baltimore, and be where would my heart be all these years in that if the Orioles were ever to climb that mountain, to ring that victory bell, to have that parade, this would be the guy that I would go to the parade with if that were that mythical thing were to ever happen. He is Alan McCallum. He has been my long-suffering friend, sometimes foe, and always opinionated and always thoughtful, if not irreverent at times. Here he comes for what's season 24, 5? I don't know how many years into this you and I are, but it's been a hell of a long time, and welcome to another year. But, hey, Alex Cobb, 5 days before opening day, didn't see that one coming now, Al.
I've lost count for how long it's been. I started with you in late '95, right before Cal broke the record. But
so this is 24-ish.
Right.
Okay, all right.
I've gotten a lot of gray hair and a lot less hair in the process, but here we are.
That's why I wear a hat,
Yeah, right. Did we not see it coming? I mean, he sat out there for a long time, and they seemed to be natural suitors. The question was whether the Orioles were going to spend the money or not. But they did, and they made it happen. And when we started talking before spring training, we talked about the Orioles having 2 starters for the rotation, and now they have 5, if you include Tillman. Cashner and Cobb, in my opinion, are a significant upgrade over Miley and Ubaldo Jimenez. Do I think we should book World Series tickets for Baltimore? No, I certainly don't. But the difference is that this at least makes them competitive. Let me be clear about this. I still think that the Orioles should have broken up this team, trading Machado and Trumbo and Beckham and Britton and Brock and
we're never going to move off of that. And if they don't win in the next 5 years, and I mean, doing the revisionist history on it, that's always going to be where the fork in the road is, right? And This fork in the road happened at a weird time in the off season. And, Alan, I've been beating on my chest about this, and I'm not going to stop. And, at some point they're going to have to, come to grips with the fact that they're a public entity, and Peter Angelos has willed himself into the public eye over the last 25 years. But kids coming free, giving pitchers over 30 who had Tommy John surgery, a 4th year, and $57 million, some of it deferred at the end. This sounds like Mr. Angelos is no longer running the franchise, and that comes from a very interested observer over half of my life and a quarter of a century, that this is not the behavior of Peter Angelos. This is the behavior of the rotisserie kid running the team now, and Brady Anderson sort of running the team right now, and Buck and Dan sort of holding on for dear life and saying, hey, let's go make the team better. We got Machado. Here we go. Because this is nothing Peter would have done. There's no part of this that sounds like Peter to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. But, I mean, it's a good contract. It's not 7 years. It's not 10 years. It's 4 years, which I think is a more than representative contract for a legitimate major league pitcher in baseball today. So, I mean, they didn't get fleeced like they did with Chris Davis. So it's not the first time they've given away big money contracts. It's the first time they have to a starting pitcher, at least since Ubaldo. And I guess whether you could debate that till the cows come home. But
well, the day they signed Ubaldo, I remember this. You and I had this conversation. I remembered I was on a tram in Indianapolis leaving the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I remember where I got the WNST text that day, brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here Thursday as well. He's not as excited about opening day as Alan and I are, and certainly not as excited about Alex Cobb as we are, because I watch them play every 5 days. I do like well-pitched games. I like games that it's 9:18 at night. We're entering the 8th inning, and it's 3-2, and it's a good game. And get the thing over 2 hours and 40 minutes like a hockey game, for crying out loud. But I digress. That day I said 4 years, was it $49 million is what it turned out to be, or $48 million? I said, will he win 48 games? And, of course, Luke being the sabermetrician here, me being the old get-off-my-lawn guy, wins aren't important. But, I mean, just in a basic sense to say, what's the value? And at Alex Cobb, for me, for the next 4 years to say, does he have a chance to win 15 games 2 of these 4 years? I say yes. Is there a chance he's going to get hurt? Yes. Is there a chance he's only going to make 100 out of the 120 starts? Yes. Can they win with him? Yes. And he sort of checked all the boxes. And let me tell you this, man. I'm kind of still wired in all over the country to great people that know the game, people around the game. Andy Fried came on. Neil Solins came on. I'm sure if I reached to Rick Vaughn down there with the Tampa Rays, this kid Alex Cobb's a good guy. Like, you're going to give a guy $60 million bucks, make sure it's not Albert Bell or Scott Erickson or Sidney Ponson or, somebody that isn't going to come in and accept the responsibility that comes with it. I like what I see from this kid. I want an Alex Cobb bobblehead. I'll wear his jersey. He seems like a good bloke, and the fact that they're behaving somewhat like a normal baseball team that wants to win, I'm into that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bless Brady Anderson to be the guy running the place or John Angelos to be my choice or his mother to be the one running the team. But if they're going to run the team and try to win, I'll tip my cap to that. I'm all in. I mean, this is the dawning of a new day here, Alan. I don't know what that means for our press pass, both of us being men of color, and from time to time, asking questions and sort of things like that people like you and I, intelligent, educated people tend to do. But I would say this, it's a step in the right direction. It looks like they want to win before opening day, and they're letting kids in for free, which is an act of desperation as much as anything else.
Wow, there's a lot. All right, so let's be clear about a couple things.
I've been saving up, Alan. I'm going to drink from my Howard Bank cup right now, where they have a relentless commitment to be the best at everything they do. And there are branches everywhere because you get around. HowardBank.com. Go ahead. I'll power down because you're going to do soliloquy. So go ahead, man, because I know you've been saving up too. Because this is how many years we've known each other. When's the last time they signed a pitcher? Like, Jimenez. Okay, but other than that, go ahead.
It's been a while. I mean, Cobb is certainly the best pitcher they've signed in the 21st century. Let's put it that way. Look, this is a team that did nothing for a long time, and I mean that gets modus operandi. The first thing is that every athlete in any sport can get hurt, so there's a risk involved in that anytime you sign anybody. In terms of pitchers, I mean, you can take that risk and amp it up times 3 at least for almost anybody else, right? So.
When you consider the old man gave Chris Davis $130 million, right? You could give somebody that money and they could just suck too. Right. Pujols, like that happens. Sabathia, I mean, it happens. Teixeira.
It happens. And let's be clear. I mean, Ubaldo Jimenez, I mean, in the 4 years he was here, no one ever said anything about Ubaldo being a bad guy. Everybody loved him. He just wasn't very good. I remember when they signed him, and for a fleeting instant, I was excited because they spent money on someone. And that I remember the year in Colorado when nobody could touch him for the first half of the year. And he was just coming off of that spectacular second half of the season in Cleveland. But I was also aware that he had been erratic for virtually every period of his career between those two moments. I mean, I remember having the conversation with you that I'm glad they spent money, but I would have rather had Irvin Santana. And Irvin Santana was suspended for 80 games after he signed that for the sign with the Twins.
Spending that kind of dough, all you really want is consistency, right? And right. Back during the steroid era where, they get Tejada and he's all juiced up and, Lopez all juiced. I don't – everybody was signing those guys back then. This is an organization that hasn't done that sort of thing other than once or twice and again, and certainly not after March 20th. And – certainly that kind of a pitcher's never been out there, right? A difference-making pitcher that you can sign on the market in late March. That's very, very unusual. And the weird part for me, and I know that there's salary cap stuff, is that, why did the Yankees want him? Why didn't the Cubs take him at the discount that they didn't have to give Arrieta? You know what I mean? Why wasn't there another team out there that could win or could be perceived as winning? I mean, look, the Phillies getting in on Arrieta. You and I haven't gone after it in a month, Alan. But there's, this late market Moustakas and, guys, just the Batistas that are just sitting out there. the whole part of it's weird, but that the Orioles were the team going in where no one would tread on a fourth year on a pitcher at this value, and Brady Anderson would ride in on his white horse and take claim to the credit. And I mean, it's just weird. The Orioles are. It's really going to be interesting to peel back the onion here as to where the old man is and where their mindset is, because who knows? Maybe John's ready to give Manny $311 million. I don't know. They certainly have the money, and certainly moving forward, if they want to win, they better sell some tickets, right?
Look, I don't know who's running the organization. I'm not sure anybody who will say can say right now, but. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Peter Angelos is not the youngest guy in the league right now. I mean, he's not a spring chicken. So, as we all know, as our parents and loved ones get older and you take more responsibility for their lives and your life and trying to figure things out, I mean, is it beyond the realm of possibility that the kids are taking some of that control from the Orioles organization? No, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. I don't know. But I know this, that...
It's very out of character, I'll say that.
I know this, that Cobb is not an erratic pitcher. A lot of guys have had Tommy John surgery. Analytics and the way players are perceived has changed a lot. I mean, the Cubs spent money on Yu Darvish, who, in the regular season anyway, is certainly someone of quality to spend money on. Is he going to do what Jake Arrieta did for them in moments? I don't know. He hasn't had that kind of season, but he's certainly solid, and I'm not sure that they need anything more than that until they get deeper into the season, and barring injury or whatever else might happen, they make a trade, and they can do that. The Yankees are a team not afraid to spend money, but they don't spend with reckless abandon like they did when George was running the ship. They've made smart, efficient choices about the long term, which is how they were able to rebuild so quickly after 2 years ago, stinking it up with Alex Rodriguez and Mark Teixeira on the back end of spectacularly long contracts that on the back end were horrible for them. They won a World Series in 2008, or in 2009 rather, but they reaped the negative consequences of those on the back end. They made choices to survive that along the way. They still have a decent payroll. They just traded for Stanton. So if you believe your pitching is good, then maybe you don't need Alex Cobb. So, I mean, I don't know why they went after them. Didn't go after him. I think that he's a pitcher of quality. Pitching in Camden Yards is going to be a heck of a lot different than Tropicana Field, so we'll see how that plays. But that's the story for any pitcher the Orioles will sign anywhere, anytime.
Well, that's always been one of the big hindrances. No one wanted to pitch in this ballpark in this division for any amount of money. Clearly they overpaid for him, by the, I mean, you always do. They gave the extra year. I mean, the negotiation was 3 years and 50. It turned out to be 4 and 57. Obviously, it was the best deal he was going to get. And I don't know that it transforms the franchise here, but if Bundy and Gausman are good, it does transform the franchise because I think he'll be good.
It pushes Gausman and Bundy. We talked about this. It pushes Gausman and Bundy back further down the rotation. It lightens their responsibility. It gives them a better chance to take a step because the step doesn't need to be as big. And that makes a difference, and people don't realize that.
I disagree with that. I think their step needs to be big for this team to win. In this division, for the team to really win, I mean, if they want to slog around a wild card and be 20 games behind the Red Sox and the Yankees, okay, but those guys can't just be marginally okay. Those guys have to pitch like twos or ones, not like a bunch of threes. I mean, this can't be Miguel Gonzalez and Wei and Chen on the top end for those guys. It's at some point, now that the Yankees and the Red Sox are back, I mean, I need somebody to be a 20-game winner. I need somebody to be a hoss. I need somebody to take the ball every fifth day. And I need a collection of those guys to look like ones and twos and threes, right? I mean,
so
for me.
You and I both know and love Mark Messina. And I had this conversation with Mark multiple times.
Well, what the hell does he know? Have you talked to him lately?
Not in a little while, but I know. But he knows a lot. And when Mike went to New York to play for the Yankees, Mark and I had this conversation once every 2 or 3 months. And Mike was clearly already an established great pitcher.
Sure.
But that going to New York allowed Mike not have to be the number one, to not have to be the guy to come and have all the questions asked of him, to not be the guy in the limelight or to have the scrutiny, because that was Roger Clemens, and that was perfect for him, because all he had to do was come out of the number 2 or the number 3 spot in rotation and pitch. And it wasn't that he wasn't going to be any less great or he wasn't going to do any less than he already did. It just lightened the mental burden of what it means to be number 1. I'm not saying that Gausman and Bundy don't need to take a step forward. What I'm saying is that when you're the guy, there is more responsibility, weight, scrutiny, importance on everything you do, and it makes the act of simply going out, taking the ball, pitching, learning, improving, and logging innings to help the team harder. It just makes it harder. And they don't have to do that because Cobb is there. And frankly, and people aren't talking about Andrew Cashner, and Andrew Cashner is not going to set the world on fire, but he's solid. And those two players, those two pitchers, make it easier for Gausman and Bundy to take the step forward. And again, it doesn't have to be, maybe Gausman does take a step forward and become an ace, but he doesn't have to do it as the number 1 guy with all the scrutiny on him that would have been previously.
I don't know even how I feel about Bundy and Gausman. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that if you gave me $1 and said bet it on them or against them, I don't know that I'm inclined either way. I guess I'm more, I would put the dollar on Bundy over Gausman. I mean, if you're asking me over the next 3 years, which one of these guys will emerge and look more like a 1 on more nights, I would say Bundy than Gausman. But I would also say I think Cobb will outpitch both of them over the next 4 years. I just believe that. You know, I think this is a really good signing. I think this is a guy that's going to take the ball and be a guy of integrity, and, you know, he comes as advertised as such, and when he's been right, has been a really, really good big league pitcher and a big game pitcher. You know, he will serve them well. He will be their opening day starter the next 3 years, is my belief. And he'll look more like a really good 2 most of the time. Now, I don't know what we're going to get out of Bundy and Gausman. I really don't. I mean,
neither do I.
I think Gausman, if you could get him to be a solid 3, and Bundy can be a 2, and you have 2 2s, or, you know, something that feels like that. Not somebody that feels like they're going to the Hall of Fame, but somebody that feels like they're going to win 16, 18, 20 games, get you to the 6th, 7th inning, give you some quality starts, you know, take on the big games in Fenway and in Yankee Stadium that you need to win. You know, having a couple of those guys, I mean, it really... Alan, I mean, God, I love you. When's the last time we were having these conversations? Like, seriously, man. Like, I would say to you, we were always a little with Gonzalez and Chen and, you know, in that era, Tillman, right, 3-4 years ago. And I came to, like, really like Miguel Gonzalez. I came to really think tonight he was going to pitch well. And I came to really understand with Wei and Chen that most nights he was going to pitch really well. And that was nice around here, but we never got comfortable with it, and it was never predictive, you know? By the time it got predictive, the Marlins were giving Chen $60 million, and he was gone, and Gonzalez didn't feel good in March, and they threw him out over $5 million. Now they give Tillman money off the side of a boat and act like it's nothing for a guy who...
can't get anybody out.
Well, 3 weeks ago we were talking about him really pitching. At least maybe now we're not talking about that. And again, one of the reasons he got all that money, I look and say Peter Angelos would have never have given a guy with an 8 ERA that money. I mean, everything about the way the team has behaved for the last 8 weeks really... I mean, I might even have a press pass on Thursday. I don't know. Maybe I should ask. You know, I don't know.
Okay, so Gausman and Bundy are both the definition of the word potential. And, you know, where you looked at Sidney Ponson or a couple other guys along the way and said they have a nice arm. Mike Wright, nice arm. I have never really believed that he has potential. Gausman and Bundy do. If you asked me who is more likely to win more games and be better over the course of the next 4 years, I'd say Bundy. I wouldn't even think twice about it. But if you ask me who I think is more likely to take the ball every 5th day over the next 4 years, I'd say Gausman, because that's been what their status has been so far. They have to write their own stories, and those stories are hard to write at Camden Yards with a team that is erratic the way they handle things. We'll see what happens.
Erratic in the way they handle things. So, This is the fascinating part where they didn't have the money for Lance Lynn, to give him 2 years and 20, you know what I mean, or whatever that they could have done a week and a half ago easily, right? I'm just saying strategically for what they've done in the offseason and where they were. And, holding the line, it is fat and trying to deal Machado, openly trying to deal Machado. Certainly we're ready to deal Britton. And now everything turns. And, hey, man, they're trying to sell tickets. God bless them. Let's get the Alex Cobb bobblehead, the shirt night out and, do it all up. I'm all for it. But it really is an interesting little strategy, and we go back to the beginning of the phone call with you, which was I would have dealt all those guys off and gone young because long-term it's probably a better move than giving Alex Cobb $60 million. But
see, I would have traded them off and signed Alex Cobb because Alex Cobb gives you the opportunity to, again, make it easier on Gothman and Bundy to develop, and it gives you cover so that you don't have to race Hunter Harvey or Tanner Scott or whoever else you believe in to the major leagues before they're ready. So,
look at the Phillies getting Arrieta, right? Like, what, right? That was the same story there where they're like, well, we're not really ready to win, but we want to be ready when we're ready. Cole Hamels was the same thing in Texas. And in order to have that guy, you got to pay that guy $20 million.
You got to pay that guy. And let me be clear about something. And I hear people talk about wins and that wins don't matter. Look, I'm not a devout analytics guy. I accept them. I understand them. As I've said to you before, I think my biggest problems with analytics is that you watch guys, you profess to like them, but they use the ones to make sense within the argument they're trying to make. That batting average, home runs, and RBIs were benchmarks that you could rate everybody by. But if you are trying to prove a point and you have 10 statistics and you choose 2 to make your argument, it's hard to frame that on a basis that makes sense. Okay, I'll say that. Secondly, it's not that, do I think wins are the end-all and be-all? I don't. But I think wins are more value than the analytics field makes them out to be. Wins say that you have pitched long enough to see your team go ahead. That usually means that you're into the 6th or 7th inning. It means that you've held the other team down in a way that preserves your bullpen, that gives your team a mental edge that believes that you have a chance to win. There is something in the win that is both tangible and beyond tangible that people do not give it enough credit for. I need to say that. So, to say that Ubaldo Jimenez is not winning as many games as he got millions of dollars of, it doesn't matter because wins don't matter. The story of Ubaldo Jimenez is that he couldn't stay on the field long enough, either because in innings or because he wasn't good enough to take the start to say that he was worthy of getting those wins.
Well, for me, when he got signed, it was $49 million. I said, will he win 49 games? And that's 12 wins a year.
That's 12 wins a year.
Over four years. That's number 3, number 4 starter on any decent team. And I think with Cobb, 15 a year over 4 years, this may not trend to be a very good baseball team, right? They may lose Machado. They may lose Jones. They're only going to be as good a baseball team at this point as they are willing to spend money, right? Because the only way they're going to be any good next year is to have a Machado and to have a Jones, because whatever they're going to have probably won't be as good as a Jones and a Machado if they're not willing to pay those guys. So
they're championing young guys. It looks like Chance Sisco's going to make the team. Whether he's going to be a good catcher or not remains to be seen. Whether he's going to be a good hitter remains to be seen, but I think we believe in his bat more than his glove.
The other thing is, if not him, then whom, right? And if not now, then when, right? We've been talking about him. Here, come on up, kid. You can either do this or you can't. And then we have to go out into the market and, figure another plan out if you're not the answer here. But,
They're championing Anthony Santander, who would be the first of Dan Duquette's Rule 5 drafts to make an impact if he were, in fact, to succeed because, T.J. McFarland, I guess Ryan Flaherty stuck with the team because he had a glove that played at a lot of positions, but he certainly wasn't the kind of guy that was going to, I remember when they drafted him, he could hit 20 home runs a year and hit 260 and be all over the field. I remember them saying, he'll be a DH, but he'll hit 20 home runs, and this is the complete reverse of that. You've got young guys. I think we all believe that Trey Mancini has a future. To what degree we'll have to see. And then there's Cedric Mullins and Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes. And the odds of all of these kids coming up and being successful major league players is unlikely. But I do believe that this crop has a better chance than some of the other names we've seen run through here over the last decade. And
long term, that was Duquette's gift, right? I mean, that's his rain man, is that he could always scout kids, right? He always knew young talent. That's, how Montreal became Montreal. That's how the Red Sox sort of got left, in the situation they were in. He's a baseball guy, and if he's been doing his job, then there should be some players there. I mean, Lord knows they ignored the international market, so there was nothing coming from there. That's for sure, right?
And you mentioned Cobb versus Lynn. Let me say this, and I've given the one section that I've given Duquette credit in consistently is that when he has gone out and found pitchers, Jason Hamill, Bud Norris, they've been guys who have pitched in tough hitters' ballparks and are used to it. And do I know who's better, Lance Lynn or Alex Cobb? No, I can't say that I particularly know that. But I do give weight to Alex Cobb based on the idea that he has pitched in this division against this competition and been successful. And I think that gives more weight to a contract to him.
Dude, you gave him $45 million more, though, right? I mean, that's all. I mean, if you're just trying to have someone to pitch this year, right, it would have.
If they'd given him 7 or 8 years, I would say that the contract was a ridiculous joke. 4 years is a legitimate amount of time to get a legitimate starting pitcher that you need. I mean, they need. God knows when they're going to get another guy to sign where the market's going to mimic what happened this off season. To have a guy like Cobb drop in your lap, 4 years is actually, I think, what the Orioles need from him. And he's young enough and far enough away from Tommy John surgery that while you can never bet on this, the odds of him staying healthy are decent. His primary pitch is a changeup. He's not a world burner, and he knows how to get guys out with that, and that would seem to bode well. He's got an interesting delivery, which is sort of a trick, which throws off timing. So, I mean, there are elements of his game that you would say, he's not throwing 110 miles an hour, and is likely to have his arm beat the ball to home plate at some point. That does not say that he's not that an injury isn't going to happen. Nobody can predict that. But I think it's a good contract. I do, and I haven't always thought that about the contracts the Orioles put out.
Oh, believe me, we absolutely know that. Alan McCallum is our guest. It's all brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank, a relentless commitment to being the best at everything they do. I want to remind everybody the Charity Community Series begins on April the 5th. I'm throwing out some email to folks there. If you've got a charity or a community organization you want to share and have a spotlight on, I'd love to have them on the air here at WNST.net. It's all brought to you by Howard Bank, as well as our friends at Cole Roofing. We all felt that March wind. We all saw the snow and the rain and the ice and the hail and all the other stuff that came down last week. You get a look at your roof, especially if you have a commercial space. It's what they do at Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy. And Bill Cole joins me once a week to talk about that. The morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. And the entries from the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel are also a part of that each and every morning, as well as out on the front of our website. So Preakness coming down the line, and the Pink Festival. Justify is the horse everyone's watching. That's a Baffert horse getting ready for Derby preps. So I'll be getting ready for that as well, as we have a racing season ahead here for the springtime with the Maryland Jockey Club. In the morning newspaper now, all brought to you by Planet Fitness. Alan McCallum, for the season, for the Orioles, for the hope, I've followed you out on Facebook. You are my friend, and I know you're going to be, getting the band back together again as well. But for the season, I think everything changes when you bring in a pitcher like this and you bring in Cashner. You and I have had a lot of desperate conversations here during the offseason, but the last two have been full of a little bit more hope. Where are you now? I mean, I know you're not going down opening day this week, and you and your sister usually make your way to a bunch of games and never invite me, by the way. But maybe this year will be the difference, Mayor. By the way, I'm going to the All-Star game this year. You want to go to the All-Star game with me?
Yes.
My wife wants to go, and so we want to go to the All-Star game. So I think we're going to, instead of nickel and diming it and going to games we don't want to go to and whatever, I think we're just going to, buckle down, and I'm going to try to find some All-Star game tickets. So
I would love to hang out with you and Jen. I'd like to hang out with Jen, but if you have to come, that's fine, too.
well, maybe I only get 2 tickets. You guys can go, and I'll sit out on whatever street it is out there and have a sausage and an ice cold refreshment, a stout or something on a summer night. But I think my expectations for them went from 6 months of meh to they might be interesting. But I tell you what. Much like, and I had the Tampa writers on and the reporters on talking about this, miracle signing of Alex Cobb, what kind of a dude he is. They start out of the gate with Boston, New York, Boston. We don't start with that, but the beginning of the season is going to be a big tell for them, and they're not going to have Cobb right away, but they have a really, really shotgun April, the Orioles do. This could be a rough start for them.
So, let me be clear about this. I'm excited that they signed Alex Cobb, and I'm more excited that they signed Alex Kashner because they signed Alex Cobb. I don't think that the Orioles are going to win the World Series, and I don't think the Orioles are going to win the division. What I think this gives the Orioles a chance to be is competitive. And the thing is, look at right now in baseball, the trend is that everyone is trying to power down so that they can reload. In the American League, you have the Houston Astros, you have the Cleveland Indians, you have the Boston Red Sox, who, while other people are championing the Yankees, I think the Red Sox are going to be the class of this division by a lot. I think the Yankees will be good. I think they'll probably finish second, but I think they have a lot. I do not think they're as good a team as people are making them out to be. But beyond that, tell me the team that's going to be a juggernaut of any kind. I mean,
the Astros are going to be pretty good. You know,
I said Astros, Indians, Red Sox, Yankees. That's what I said. Everybody else has some significant issues. I mean, Kansas City Royals were chopped apart. Kane and Hosmer are gone, and God knows their pitching isn't what it used to be. Their bullpen is non-existent now. The Blue Jays are going to be okay, much like the Orioles. The Rays are in a constant rebuild. The Twins made the postseason last year, but their shortstop just got suspended for 80 games, and I think they'll be okay. There's no other team. I mean, the Angels, their biggest signing was Ohtani, and so far in spring training, he hasn't been able to hit or get anybody out.
Boy, that thing starts to smell really, really bad, right?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, the same thing could have been said with Hyun-Soo Kim, and he got the season and took off. I mean, I don't know. My point is that everybody else has the same questions the Orioles have in one form or another. So the Orioles' rotation is more short up, but it's not spectacular because we don't know what Gausman and Bundy are going to do. The Orioles are not the same defensive team they used to be. Do I believe that Machado and Scope can hold down the middle infield? I know Scope can, and Machado's been good in spring training at shortstop. That's fine. Defensively in the outfield, they're not what they used to be. Third base is going to be far less spectacular than it used to be. Frankly, I'd be happy if Trumbo and Chris Davis started the season on the DL because I think they'll be a better team without either one of those guys in the lineup on a regular basis. But when they get back in, they're going to
You're way down on them, huh? I mean, yeah, I don't know how we can't be, but I mean, I am with you. 232, as they get older, but one of them will be hurt. Something will go wrong.
200 strikeouts,
yeah,
27 to 30 home runs. Like, if they're at 250 with 40 home runs, that's when their value can be seen in this lineup. But to have both of them and whatever you think about Buck, I hate Buck's lineups. His lineups are always leave me scratching my head. But he's going to put those guys right in the middle of the lineup, clogging up, striking out behind one another. Chris Davis should be batting 7th, and Mark Trumbo should be batting 5th at best.
Well, you would call it beer league softball, but you're not really sure they can hit the ball well enough. Literally,
right.
You got to hit 30, 35. You want me to start calling you beer league softball? You hit 21 or 22, you're like Pedro Alvarez or Batista. You're unemployed, right? Literally.
Right. So, I mean, but we know about this team that they're not going to get on base a ton. They're going to strike out a lot, but they're going to hit a ton of home runs,
like they have every year.
Like they have every year through this stretch. That will allow them to score runs through the middle of the season. Buck will overplay his lineup in September. If they don't have a lead and he doesn't have an opportunity to rest players, they'll be exhausted. So we'll see what happens. But this team has enough talent based on what the rest of the league is throwing out to look at and say on paper right now, barring injury, they have a chance to make one of the wild card spots, probably the second wild card spot. And I mean, that's not even based on the Orioles. That's based on looking at the rest of the league and saying there's nobody else out there except the Astros, the Indians, the Red Sox, and the Yankees that set my socks on fire. And I'm not even sure the Yankees are that.
Well, somebody's going to step up and win, 88, right. 90 games. You need to be that team, And that mess will be 523, 532, 516. That's what it's going to look like all year long, right?
And the difference could be that Machado, happy at shortstop, about to hit his free agency, has that magical MVP year that a lot of guys have in their last year. Mark Trumbo certainly had it for the Orioles. That is certainly a possibility. Is it going to happen? I don't know.
Well, this reminds me when Johnny Oates came back and turned over all the beans in the clubhouse and was yelling at every corner of the locker room, "Are you going to lead us? Who's going to lead us?" And there's a lot of guys playing for money here, to your point. Adam right. Jones playing for money. Machado playing for money. Scope playing for money. And all of it's sort of dangling. And for Gausman and Bundy, they're playing for money right now. Cobb's probably pissed he didn't get $90 million, right?
And look, there's an X factor. I mean, these guys they're smart enough to know this team's not going to look like this next year. And I think these guys have had a lot of fun playing together. I mean, whatever you think about it. I mean, you remember all those years where the Orioles clubhouse was a mausoleum, and nobody wanted to be in there. And that has not been the story of this team. I remember when Adam Jones was a young guy and wanted to take the lead, and the veterans were like, "Pipe down, kid." But Adam Jones has done a good job putting this, keeping this team along with Buck and the other guys. I mean, the mood changed. And I think they recognize that this is the last run, and I think there's enough pride in that clubhouse for things to go a certain way. Those are all X factors. Those are all intangibles that cannot be read with analytics. But do they matter? Absolutely, they matter. So, I mean, there are a lot of reasons to look at this team and say these guys could reach deep down and do something special. Maybe they'll fall flat on their face. I don't know. But what I do know is that they have as much or more talent as pretty much any other team in the American League that has a shot at the second wild card. If this were 8 years ago, I would not be talking about the Orioles as a potential postseason team because there was no second wild card,
right?
And they weren't going to do that.
Fair enough. Well, that's the thing that stoked the whole debate. Alan McCallum is our guest. You can find him, Alan, at WNST.net, our Oriole historian. Now 24 years. We've done the math. All of it brought to you by our friends at King Discount Liquors, Lottery, Beer, Booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get on over and see my pal Paul King. Give the King a ring. I'm Adam Malbeck. I got to make that happen. I get back from Florida. Down in Florida all week long for the NFL owners meetings. Will be in Orlando. You can follow my journey out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and everywhere we go. Everywhere I go down there, they want the Maryland crabs. They got those stone crabs down there. But the Box Hill Pizzeria, people are ready to ship those crab cakes to Florida, anywhere you are. The best crab cakes in Harford County. And if you haven't been to the location up in Abingdon to see them, they are remodeling the entire dining room. So it's a little bit under construction right now, but certainly get some pizza, get a Hito, certainly get some crab cakes, take them home with you. BoxHillPizzeria.com, building a bigger, better Box Hill for you. Don't forget, Thursday night, head coach Barry Trotz will be joining us. We'll be rocking the red at Michael's Cafe in Timonium. I'm looking forward to the split-level soup there, and a crab cake, and a prime steak, and a Malbec. And head coach Barry Trotz will be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero. It's all brought to you by our friends at Fremont Mortgage. Carl Delmont is there for you, helping you out. We're getting into spring now, so don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Make sure if you're buying, selling a house, or you're in the marketplace to sort of gauge where you are, you want to check them out at Freedmont.com. They also sponsor all of our swabbings, as do the good folks at Cole Roofing. Bill Cole will be heard from a little later on in the week as we get ready for opening day this week. Alan, last thing for you here on the Orioles, and you could certainly jump in anywhere you want. And I will say that I am much more bullish on them than I have been, based on the fact that Machado's still here, Buck's still here, Jones is still here, Peter may not longer be here, making decisions that maybe moving forward things will level out and they'll become, formidable in their decision-making and their strategy. But I would say, look, that remains to be seen with Cobb, with the money they gave Tillman, with where they're going to be with Machado and Scope. I mean, who knows? May 18th, maybe Scope agrees to a $110 million extension. I doubt it, but and especially in the new marketplace, in the new wilderness of where is real money? Because Alex Cobb could have signed for more money a long time ago, and certainly Mike Moustakas thought he was, someone's going to back the Brinks truck up. Had he taken some sort of a sweetheart deal with the Royals or looked for $60 million 3 years ago, he would have gotten it, right? So, look, that has never been the case. I mean, I remember the arrogance of Messina 15 years ago saying, you know what? Every 6 months the price of pitching goes up, and as long as my arm doesn't fall off, I'll get paid. And that's always the way it's worked, unless your arm falls off. But this whole business of letting kids in for free, this is certainly something Mr. Angelos never would have done. I talked to the guys down in Tampa earlier this week. They have $2 nights there. Tuesday nights, they let kids in for $2. So one night a week. That's something the Orioles could have easily been doing as long as you and I have known each other. Maybe not 96, 97, 98. But when the thing started to turn a little bit, had they started to turn a little bit and move things a little bit, they would have been a much better organization if they were well run over the last 25 years. I mean, I could have said that in so many ways. I would have created so many more memories had they been able to take some constructive criticism that came from my heart. But nonetheless, it's not who Peter is or was. But I don't know who they're going to be. But letting kids in, boy, that's a whole different thing. And that's something that the Cubs don't do, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, because they don't have to. They don't have to. They haven't pissed on their community for 25 years the way these people have. So, and I've talked about the Blackhawks and how what happened in Chicago when the kids took over there. This is a dawning of a new time here because I haven't been able to honestly ever come forth with a microphone and speak about anything with the Orioles that was not going to have to be passed through Mr. Angelos ever. So that has shaped literally every part of the organization over all of my life on the radio here at WNST. Kids in free. Seems to me there was a guy from Dundalk who used to talk about that back in 2003 and 4 and 5 and 6 every year with a guy like you saying, when are they going to address the fact that the community has gotten 58 and very old very quickly for them?
So, what's the age on that? I'm not sure.
Nine.
Okay.
And I have no idea how they're going to validate that.
Single digits. Let me say this. The Orioles, are they the worst running team in baseball? I would say, given the fact they've gone to the postseason 3 times in this little stretch here, probably not. But it's hard to say that they are. But they certainly were for 15 years prior to 2012. And during that time, I know we had a lot of arguments because they were consistently, if not the least expensive ticket in baseball, they were among the lowest 2 or 3. And there's something to be said for that. And they have relatively continued to keep the prices down. I mean, when they've made jumps, people have been up in arms, but they're trying to catch up. So for all the things you can knock Peter Angelos and the Orioles on, I don't think you can say that they've been trying to gouge people at the turnstiles by relative to what the rest of tickets were going for in baseball or sports in general. I mean, look, don't even get me started about the NFL and the way to do that. And the NFL does it because it can. But the world is changing, and again,
well, you're in a business that abuts tickets and sales,
absolutely.
and everything is a hotel night, everything is a plane seat, everything is supply and demand.
My livelihood depends on people wanting to come see things in person, and it's not even as big for my industry right now. But look, every time someone goes out and buys a TV at a TV store, whether it's a box company or specifically for digital TVs, that's one less ticket someone's going to sell. Because if you put in that $400 to $1,000 investment into your home so that you can get big entertainment, and the more platforms that are competing for the dollar and trying to get programming, particularly with baseball, football is king. I get it. No, I would never tell anybody different. But you know what? baseball provides more content than any other major sport in America. And I remember when ESPN was trying to lowball baseball, and they said, fine, we'll pull out before the MLB Network. And ESPN panicked because they knew that they needed that content on a daily basis for 6 months of the year. So, I mean, there are a lot.
But it also has not appealed to young people. It has not appealed to millennials. I mean, and certainly not in our marketplace. I mean, it's a place to go and get hammered out on the outfield deck, but it's not the soap opera it once was, where the names of Alex Cobb roll off the lips of fans here locally because they're so enamored with baseball and they're so engrossed in baseball. They're not even engrossed in football as much anymore. And certainly locally, lacrosse plays a big role in that. But, you know, in trying to get people's attention here, and the Ravens have the same issue, and I've talked about it with everybody from Rob Weinhold through, all the owners' meetings this week, and I'm in Orlando doing that all week long, and they have a crisis across the parking lot with the purple football team. The baseball team has been in some sort of a crisis mode for 25 years because it's never $3.6 million. It's never going to be that again. Certainly the Nationals and taking the market share where the Orioles don't have a lot of room to grow. This thing of letting kids in for free is fascinating to me. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. It's fascinating to me that someone other than Peter, whether it's his wife, John, Lou, Brady Anderson, someone else, is affecting decision-making after. Dude, this is, Cuba after Fidel. I mean, literally, every decision has been backward-ass, crazy, mean-spirited, divisive, a plutocracy. I mean, it has been what it's been. I've written about it. We've witnessed it. But now something else is going to happen here. And if that something else is signing pitchers to $57 million deals a week before opening day, that's certainly a lot different than what I've witnessed here since the summer of 1993.
We're standing at a significant turning point for the Orioles, for baseball, for sports, for
the corridor too. The Nationals are good. They're good down there. This being the lame team up here, the Senators played that role for 30 years.
Yeah, but the Nats, while their fans are devoted, they have the Washington Capitals problem that they can't get through past the first round, and people are leery about that. They're going to be great during the regular season, but people are a little shy about them. But look, you mentioned millennials. Millennials don't buy, they rent. Millennials don't stay for a decade at a job. They stay for a year to 2 years, and then they go to the next thing. Baseball's got to be like watching paint dry for the I don't know if I'll call it attention span. I'll just call it a change in perception of the world. And they want things to move. And baseball is a slow burn. It's the story of a season. It's not what happened yesterday. It's watching the whole thing unfold over the course of it. And I don't know that necessarily appeals to the new mentality. So, yeah, I mean, people are watching baseball. The MLB at that app, I know for at least the last 5 years, has been the biggest selling app in the world, or at least certainly in this country. I'll say this country, from a sports standpoint. And baseball's trying to figure out a lot of things, which is why pace of play is so important, which they argued with the Players Association about that before spring training. So a lot of things are changing. But for the Orioles, Buck Showalter, Dan Duquette, Adam Jones, Manny Machado, Peter Angelos, who's running the organization, who's going to be on the field next year. This year, 2018, is the end of a lot of things that have been going on since 2012. This will be this period of time, 2012 to 2018, will be a significant story of who the Orioles became after a 14 years pit of absolute abomination, where they got to be respectable for most of the time, and it was fun to watch the Orioles again. And we don't know what's going to happen. They need to get the fan base back. They need the next crop of players to be mostly successful. They need to have the next guy, whether it's Buck Showalter or some new analytics manager, know what he's doing. And they need the next guy who takes over the reins of the organization to be able to put something together that works. But this season is really important to the history of the Orioles. No, they're not going to win the World Series. Let's get that out of the way. But for it to be fun, people are excited right now for the first time since I don't know, end of 16. People are excited about the Orioles signing Alex Cobb and the season, and that was not the case 2 weeks ago. So they have a chance to ride something. And you're right. The beginning of the season is a gauntlet, and they need to traverse it successfully. And have this season be something that will keep people's interest far into the fall. So we'll see where we end up when it's all said and done. But yeah, I mean, there's a changing tide in our culture, in the industry, in the sport, and certainly for this team that they need to take a hold of right now and see where it puts them in as we enter 2019.
All right, my dude, hang on tight. Baseball's about to start. Get the bunting out, ice down the beverages, and just hope for more of Gary and Jim and less of Mike and yeah, I mean,
I'm flying the flag, Ness. We'll see where it takes us.
Something magic happens every time you go. All right, see you later, Alan. There he goes. Alan McCallum. He's Alan at WNST.net. Another season awaits. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. The tasty coffee. Download the app, and you can get the fried chicken and the Western fries for free if you're using the app when you're gassing up. Use it. Download it. It's gospel. Fill up with that cone of coffee in the mornings as well. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Also brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club. Cure the Winter Blues this weekend down at Laurel. We're getting you ready for racing for the Pink Festival Day, for the Preakness, Black Eyed Susan, the whole deal. We're getting you ready for maybe Justify to come in as a Derby favorite or a Derby winner in May. We'll be talking more horse racing around here with Stan Salter as well. The Maryland Jockey Club entries now in our morning newspaper, all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, as well as a part of our website at WNST.net. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. I'm in Florida. For all things owners meetings, make sure you're checking us out on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and all those places, as well as with head coach Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals. He'll join us on Thursday night at Michael's Cafe in Timonium. Show starts at 7:30. It is the opening day after party with the Caps. We'll be talking all things Stanley Cup and swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero. Come on out, give a spit, get on the Bone Marrow Registry, help us save some lives, get some young folks out. We need some Caps fans as well. We're going to rock our red on Thursday night. Big week around here. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.